And are you refreshed?
Yes.
Good. Your parents are teachers of behavior. Many times you learn your flawed premises from your parents. Your children are really better teachers than your parents because they come from the vantage point of alignment. It is a pure platform. In other words, when you think about what your children like it when we tell you the story of how it all fits together, because and there are some things that they would like us to emphasize for you. They want us to remind you that they came, as did you, but they came knowing that there would be variety or contrast that would inspire them to expansion. And they want to know, do you really seek to contain their expansion? And of course the answer to that, any thinking parent, certainly one knowing what you know, would be no. I would never want to limit your expansion. Therefore, I would never really want to limit your contrast, because I want you, child of mine, to put into your vibrational escrow the things you came forth to put there. So I don't want to mess with your step one experience. Do you really?
No.
And they want you to remember that when they ask, it is always given, and so you don't need to worry. And they want you to remember that they will find their way to alignment, and they have a better chance of finding their way to alignment if they are not having to worry about you and your alignment along the way. So that's the best premise for this discussion that we could give you. Now we want to hear what's going on.
When this child came into our life, I never doubted this material again. I knew that you could create a castle or a button. I knew that this child was to take me to the next level of creation, and that I needed to get out of the way, that I needed to lower my resistance about the way I even saw parenting to go to that next level with this child.
Yes.
And I can see that when I impose my parenting in the way that I was taught to parent or was parented,
Yes.
It is a pillow to his face. And he's vehement about removing that pillow. And that's where the conflict comes in.
For example?
Gavin, let's get dressed. We need to go to school. I'm playing. And so that ensues about getting ready, breakfast, getting to go play, whatever, because he really would rather hang there and play than get ready and go to school. Everything is involved in engaging you in the game. So it's all about play. It's really all about, let's have a good time, let's go to the next thing.
Is he, under some circumstances, good at drawing you into a game?
Yes.
And are you as good at drawing him into a game? Are you as playful as he is?
No. Honestly, no. I mean, because sometimes I have my own agenda, and it doesn't involve that game right away.
Well, he has his own agenda, which does involve the game.
Right.
The reason that we put it to you that way is that when you stand in a moment and you realize it's not going the way you want it to, in other words, you have things you want him to do and you want him to do them now in order to keep the schedule, and it's not happening, so you feel the frustration of it not happening, it's too late for you to apply any really good parenting skills at that point, because the only thing you can do is step back into the parenting that you learned from your parents and they learned from their parents, which is all about action and coercion and control and submission. And so when you're in a situation like that, you might as well just roll with it and expect him to not like it, as any pure positive energy being wouldn't. In other words, there's just not anything you can do when you come. It's like, you've heard us tease. You've jumped out of an airplane, you're at 40,000 feet, you have no parachute. What do I do now? Just hang on, it will be over soon. Because it's too late in that moment to do anything about it, given the parameters that you've put on it. School is this far away, it takes this long to get here. I have a commitment or a belief that he should go. In other words, the way things are stacked up and the way he's behaving and the way I'm feeling, all we can do is have a wrestling to the ground sort of match where whoever's bigger will win, and it's going to be me. But you can feel the discord of it, because nothing about that is in alignment with who you are. And we've exaggerated this, but not very much. So now what we are suggesting is that once you have an opportunity, and a day or even a few hours of advance notice is enough, to work with it on an energy level rather than on an action level. So now you want to begin. Do you know that those games that this creative youngster draws you into, sometimes it feels to you like they're games that he's just thinking up in the moment. But we want you to know he practices a lot of it in his mind ahead of time. In other words, he's doing a lot of pre-paving about all of this. And when we ask you how good you are at those games, and you said not good at all, that's because you're not practicing in advance. If you will, start at the end result that you want to see and roll it over in your mind. Tell the story to yourself and fill in whatever details you need to fill in to make the story work out the way you want it to work out. What happens is you get a vibrational advantage going. And when you tell yourself stories that tune you into who you are, you elicit from this creative person a more cooperative spirit also, because we promise you that it's the only thing that your children, who are for the most part pure positive energy, really ever rebel against is resistance. That's why we teased you and said, are you telling us that your child is not applying his parenting skills appropriately? We want you to understand that that is the thing that your children have come to help you to remember. It's the thing that you have forgotten as a parent, most have, and your parents had forgotten it too. And that is that you just can't get there from there. In other words, it's not about action, it's about alignment. And so your children come forth to help you to try to release the resistance that you've picked up along your physical trail. Only it's an interesting thing. Most parents, in the experience of that, don't release more resistance, they just pick more and more up. So let's come round to some specifics. So let's say that it's the day before, and you're starting this game that you're going to play well in advance and in the privacy of your own mind, and you are imagining the end result that you're seeking. And in this case, the end result that we're talking about is a comfortable getting ready and leaving of the house and arriving at school feeling glad to be there. In other words, that's the picture that you have in your mind. And the way you're telling the story is, I've practiced this so well, and I have tuned in with who I am so dramatically, and I'm so absent of resistance that my child is no longer pushing against my resistance. Now, we started to say it and didn't actually spit it out in the way that we really meant it. The biggest problem that children have with parents is that they see their parents as resistant. And as they see their parents as resistant, they're all the time trying to encourage you out of your resistance. But it's like if ever you are in a place of not feeling good and somebody's all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and they're trying to help you feel better, most of you just dig in and feel worse. And that really is a very good example of what's happening with children. They want to stay loose and connected to who they are and playful, and parents want them to get regimented and organized and to do things that they don't want to do. And we just want to say to you that as long as you're approaching any kind of co-creation, especially that with young children, from that vantage point, you don't have a chance, because all of the laws of the universe are on their side. So your only possibility of parenting in the way you intend to is to come into alignment with who you are before you attempt any parenting. In other words, tune in to who you are, and then from that connection with who you are, approach this situation and see this situation and your child through the eyes of Source. So Source sees your child, knows your child to be right on track, in a perfect place, maybe doing even some step one stuff, feeling vibrational escrow full of stuff, and on the way to a long and exhilarating life experience. And that's the story that your inner being tells about your child. It's the story that your inner being tells about you too, but that's the story that your inner being tells about your child. In other words, that's our story, and we're sticking to it. Now your child resonates with that story. You're the only one not cooperating, you see. And so you've got to find some way of getting yourself in that loop. And the way you do it is by the night before beginning to tell the successful story. So the successful story, you can go as far into the future as you want. My child went to school, loved it, learned so much, got a really strong footing for life, and is now so successful in life, meaning so joyful and productive and exhilarated and enlivened and in love with life, and I and his schooling were all a part of that. In other words, fast forward out there and tell that story. And then you can come closer to this day by telling a story closer to this day, and tomorrow we will awaken refreshed, and we're going to be like on the same wavelength, and it's going to feel like we're just jiving, and that the ideas that I have and that the ideas that he has are all in sync with one another, and we're just going to surprise and delight each other all morning as we sort of flow into this day, and we're going to have fun from the moment that we're both awake all the way until I drop him off at school, or until he's on his way to school. Do you take him, or do...
Every other day.
Until he's on his way to school. And as you begin now that's a very general story. You're leaving out any details that could make you say, not going to happen. You're telling it in a general way. You're fast forwarding to a sort of end result place. Then you could come forward still. When he awakens in the morning, he's going to be in that playful mood, and so am I. And when we first begin engaging, we're going to be like playmates that are standing in a basis of knowing who we really are, of knowing that all is well. You see what we're getting at? So many parents, instead of looking at their child through the eyes of Source, who knows the well-being of the child and the value of this day and the value even of the contrast and the value of what they're putting into escrow and their complete ability to achieve it and their reason for being and their absolute opportunity and probability of fulfilling their reason for being. In other words, that's the way the Source within you feels about that. Most parents are outside the vortex, standing over there in a worrisome place and offering all of their instructions and behavior from a disconnected place. If you don't hurry, we're going to be late. And if you don't hurry, you're not going to be ready in time. And if you don't settle down, you won't have time to eat. And if you don't eat, you won't have the energy that you need for the day. And if you don't have the energy, you won't learn in school. And if you don't learn in school, then your life won't go well. And if you don't show up tuned in, if you don't look good when you get to school, then I'll be thought badly of. And in other words, most parents are doing most of their instructing and guiding from their worrisome place of what will go wrong instead of from their connected place of what is going well. And the child is so insistent on not being dragged out of their vortex